ang lubos sa pagtaas ng mga alon at maging sa pagtuyon sa bawat panahon. Asang pag-asa ko, pag-asa ko, pag-asa ko.
All right, thank you very much. You may now take your seats. And once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our scientific forum for this celebration of the World Meteorological Day and the National Meteorological Day, this 23rd of March, 2023. So I am your host, Mr. Bernard Punsalan of the Public Information Unit. I'll be joined by two of the youngest doctors here at DOST-PAGASA for our two sessions this morning. The part one would be for the water for a sustainable future, and another one, the last part actually, is about early warning systems for water-related challenges. So to formally begin our celebration, let us hear a welcome remarks and a message from our dear administrator of the DOST-PAGASA, none other than Dr. Vicente B. Malano.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bernard. I'm looking at the program that I have here, and we are now in the conducting of the scientific forum, but as I review the program, we've been doing the celebration of this World Meteorological Day since Monday, and this is the day that this is the World Meteorological Day and National Met Day. And thank you so much for coming, to everyone, that even those who are online. I think we have some lecturers online. May lecturer ba? May lecturer online. Okay. And we also thank for the organizers of this scientific forum, including those that organize all the committees that are involved in the celebration of the WM Day and National Met Day, led by Miss Shirley and Miss Telma, and all the members of the committees, different committees. We have, I think now we have the different online, the different personnel and scientific personnel from different agencies. I don't know if we have from LGUs, we have from DNR, we have from Soil and Water Management, and one of the lecturers will be Dr. Bill David of the BSWM and National Water Resources Board. And we have here Dr. Sanchez, Dr. Sharples, Wendy Sharples, and we have another one, Dr. Shan Mugam.
Recording in progress.
Thank you for being with us today. And with me here are Dr. Pawelas, the officer in charge of the Office of the Administrator for Operational Services, Dr. Natsir Bando, the Deputy Administrator for Admin and Engineering Services, and Dr. Kayanan. We have, I think, all the members of the executive staff, maybe not present physically, but online. We have Engineer Kiblat from the Visayas PRSD. We have Roy, the head of the Hydromet Division. Telma, the head of Climate and Agromet Division, who is the head of the committee. We have here the chief of administrative division, Miss Cel Arroyo. Wala na ba? And co-workers in PAGASA, and I think we have a visitor from the Visayas State University, a former scholar of the BSMET, Mr. Yugi, Mayong Buntag. Muli, maraming salamat po sa lahat at sana ay itong mga those who lectures that will be presented to us will be useful in different sectors of our society. And as much as during this time we are experiencing, or we will be, there is an impending formation of an El Nino, wherein most parts of the country of our country will be affected, particularly in the eastern part, and even our dams. During this time, I think we are experiencing low level of our dams, and I hope that we can plan on whatever we can to maximize or optimize the use of water resources during this time for the different sectors, like for example, water resources, for agriculture, for domestic use, for power generation. Again, thank you very much, and welcome to this scientific forum. And good morning.
Thank you very much, our dear Administrator, Dr. Vicente B. Malano, welcoming us all in this important event. And we are very fortunate as well to be joined by one of our beloved officials of the DOST. He's the big boss, actually, of our department. And to give us another message, let us all welcome the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, Dr. Renato U. Solidum, Jr.
Dear distinguished guests, scientists, researchers, meteorologists, and weather enthusiasts, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 73rd World Meteorological and 158th National Meteorological Day celebration with the theme, Future of Weather, Climate, and Water Across Generations. Today, we gather to commemorate the vital role of meteorology in our society and to look towards the future of weather, climate, and water management. As we face the challenges of a rapidly changing world, it is essential that we work together across generations to safeguard our planet's climate, weather, and water resources, because the future of our planet is in our hands. Meteorology plays a critical role in helping us to understand and mitigate the impact of climate change, and we at the Department of Science and Technology is one with you in upholding the importance of science, technology, and innovation in this endeavor. This year's theme highlights the importance of collaborative efforts in weather forecasting, climate modeling, and water management. We must continue to develop innovative approaches and technologies to address the complex challenges we face today and ensure a sustainable future for generations to come. I am confident that today's discussions and presentations will inspire and inform us on the latest developments and initiatives in the field of meteorology. Let us all commit to working together towards a better, more resilient, and sustainable future. Once again, welcome to the 73rd World Meteorological and 158th National Meteorological Day celebration. Let us celebrate the past, present, and future of meteorology and our collective efforts towards a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Renato U. Solidum Jr. of the Department of Science and Technology. All right. And also to give us another message is coming from the World Meteorological Organization. Let us all welcome Mr. Peteri Talas.
Greetings from the World Meteorological Organization Secretariat here in Geneva. Our weather and climate and water cycle knows no national nor political boundaries. International cooperation is essential. This philosophy has driven the work of the great meteorological family since 1873 and will guide us also in the future. The demand for our expertise and our science has never been higher. The World Meteorological Day of this year, 23, is very special because it takes place during the 150th anniversary of WMO's predecessor, the International Meteorological Organization. For the past 150 years, national meteorological and hydrological services have collected and standardized the data which underpin the weather forecasts we now take for granted. The history of WMO data exchange is a success story of scientific cooperation to save lives and livelihoods. We are the second oldest United Nations agency. We are proud of our achievements and will celebrate them in a landmark year when our decision-making World Meteorological Congress will agree strategic priorities to promote our vision of a world which is more resilient to extreme weather, climate, water and other environmental events. Few words about our main initiative, Early Warning Services for All. There is increasing momentum behind the ambitious drive to ensure that life-saving early warning systems cover everyone in the next 5 years. The Early Warning Services for All initiative launched by United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on World Meteorological Day a year ago was endorsed at the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh and has won support from developed and developing countries, from the UN family and the private sector. Early warnings work. They must work for everyone. Half of WMO members still do not have adequate multi-hazard early warning systems, and we need to fill the gaps in the basic observing systems, especially in least developed countries and small island developing states. Early warnings are a low-hanging fruit of climate change adaptation, which is no longer a luxury but a must. According to the World Economic Forum, in the next 10-year time frame, failure to mitigate climate change, failure of climate change adaptation, and natural disasters are the highest risks for the global economy. They are not only a matter of comfort. At least half of all disasters are water-related. At the United Nations Water Conference in New York from 22nd to 24th of April this year, WMO will show how water-related hazards like floods and droughts are increasing. Climate change and the melting of glaciers will also lead to more water stress. Better water monitoring and management are essential. This is why WMO is working on global water information system to promote free exchange of hydrological data and also improvement of cooperation between meteorological and hydrological agencies at the country level. Our second big initiative is related to greenhouse gas monitoring. Climate change is defining a challenge of our time. How we respond to that challenge will determine the future of our planet and our children and grandchildren. This will be highlighted in the synthesis of the sixth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. The global average temperature is more than 1.1 degrees higher than it was when IMO was founded 150 years ago. Our weather is more extreme, our ocean is warmer and more acidic, sea levels have risen and glaciers and ice are melting with higher and higher speeds. The rate of change is accelerating. Atmospheric levels of greenhouse gases remain the record level, and yet there is currently no comprehensive timely international exchange of surface and space-based greenhouse gas observations. To fill the void, WMO is seeking to develop the sustained and coordinated global greenhouse gas monitoring infrastructure. It would expand and consolidate the WMO's long-standing activities in greenhouse gas monitoring under the auspices of the Global Atmosphere Watch and the Integrated Global Greenhouse Gas Information System. The concept is based on highly successful World Weather Watch, which was ushered at the start of the satellite era and celebrates its 60th anniversary this year. It remains the gold standard for international cooperation. The members of WMO can be proud of our achievements in our long and rich history. We started life in an era of Morse code and telegrams for shipping forecasts. Supercomputers and satellite technology are opening up new horizons for ever more reliable weather climate prediction, with the possibility of kilometer scale climate modeling, which we are also promoting in the longer run. There's a need to go to higher resolution of climate modeling to better describe the hydrological cycle and future extremes, including, for example, what's going to happen to the melting of Antarctic glacier, what kind of ocean atmosphere glacier interaction is taking place, and how quickly the Antarctic glacier is going to melt. And there are big risks related to that issue. But even in an era of artificial intelligence and machine learning, we still depend on the personal dedication and commitment of the staff of National Meteorological and Hydrological Services who work every day of every year to save lives. We thank you all, and I would like to wish you most successful World Meteorological Day of 23. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Professor Petteri Talas of the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization. Okay. So just a few reminders, especially those who are joining us physically here at the AMIHAN conference room. So please refrain from joining us online to avoid any technical difficulties, especially for the audio. Okay. So if it's unavoidable, so kindly just turn off the microphone and the sound. Okay. And moving on, perhaps we can now go on for the photo opportunities with our key officials and guests. Okay. Just a few minutes of photo opportunities with our participants. Okay. We would also like to request our participants joining us online to open their web cameras. Okay. For the screen capture. Yan. Sige po. Okay. So, for those who are joining us physically here, at DOST-PAGASA, we may perhaps take the space at the back of our key officials. Okay. And for those joining us online, please turn on your camera and we will capture the screen or take a screen snap. All right, thank you so much. We may now take our seats for those who are physically present. Yung sa online po, I think okay na rin for the screen grab. Thank you. Ayan. By the way, we are joined by hundreds of participants online. So paki-remind na lang po ulit yung ating mga mobile devices joining us online to please turn off yung audio. Ayan. Okay. So we may now move on to our first part. Just like what I have mentioned earlier, we are joined by two of the youngest doctors or PhD graduates, very young ones, from DOST-PAGASA. And the first one to moderate us or be as a moderator for the part one, which is Water for Sustainable Future. Let us all welcome our very own, or from the Climate and Agromet Division, si Dr. Joseph Vasconcillo.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Bernard Punsalan. So I am Joseph Vasconcillo, and I will be your moderator for the session Water for a Sustainable Future. Before we start, let me check, at least for the presenters. I think we have three presenters, four. Yeah, we have four presenters who will provide their lecture online. May we check if Engineer Rongavilla is online? Please, can you check? All right.
Am I clear, sir?
Okay, right. And then, Professor Sanchez, can you check? All right.
Hi, I'm
Hi,
here.
good
Can you
morning,
hear me?
Professor Sanchez. What about Dr.
Morning.
Shapples from BUM Australia? Are you here?
I'm here too.
All right,
hopefully.
good morning. And then we have Dr. Shanmugam from Thailand. Are you here online? Dr. Shanmugam? All right. So while waiting for Dr. Shanmugam, I think we need to start for the first presentation. Our first presenter is the Chief of Monitoring and Enforcement Division of the National Water Resources Board, or NWRB, His presentation is on water resources management. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Engineer Luis S. Rongavilla, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Allow me to share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yeah, they can see it online now. All right, sir. You
Okay.
can proceed now. Sir, you have 20 minutes for your presentation. That's inclusive of question and answer. So you may now proceed, sir.
Okay, so I have to go fast. Anyway, good morning again, everyone, to all participants and the host, particularly the OST. Good morning. On behalf of our Executive Director, Dr. Sibilio David, unfortunately, he is currently at New York, attending the United Nations Water Forum with our DNR Secretary, Luisaga. So, in his behalf, may I present to you NWRB's presentation outline. Of course, first, just a few slides for NWRB, and then our water situation there, and then what are the issues on water management, and then some of our projects and programs to address those issues. Okay, for the information of everybody, especially those for our foreigner visitor, the NWRB is the government agency which manages and regulates all water resources and services in the Philippines. It integrates and coordinates all water-related activities that have social, environmental, and economic impacts on the country. So it is based on our Presidential Decree 1067 or the Water Code of the Philippines. Our vision is very short: sustainable water for a healthy nation. And mission is to allocate sufficient water for optimal beneficial use, to ensure access to safe water supply and adequate sanitation services, and to preserve flow regimes for ecological integrity. The NWRB board is composed of the high-level secretaries. As you can see, we are chaired by none other than our Secretary of the DNR, or Department of Environment and Natural Resources, vice by the Secretary of NEDA, and the members are the secretaries of DOJ, DOST, DOF, and Director of UP National Hydraulic Research Center, and the Director of the National Water Resources Board. Although our office is only in the central Metro Manila or in Quezon City, we have also our deputized agents in the regions. For example, DNR Water Resources Unit Section, and then the Public Works and Highways Regional Offices, and also National Irrigation Administration Regional Offices. Just to present you our mandate, three main duties or functions. Number one is the policy formulation. We do policies, water-related policies. And then the second is the resource regulation. We do regulate the source through the issuance of water permits. Okay, and then on economic regulations, we are also the one issuing the franchise, or what we call the CPC or CPCN, or the Certificate of Public Convenience. So before anyone or anybody or a company or group of people can operate public water supply, they have to get a CPC from NWRB. Okay, just very brief on our water resources. This I think it's common to all, since most of us are a technical person. Of course, the Philippines has an average rainfall of 2,400 millimeter per year, and it produces a groundwater of 20.2 billion cubic meter and a surface water of 125.8 for a total of 146 billion cubic meter. So as you can imagine how lucky is the Philippines. So it's too much water. Based on that, as you can see here for the water availability in the Philippines per cubic meters per capita per year. So as you can see from 1995 to 2020, you can see here the fast declining the water capita for the Philippines per person. So you can see based on the water stress index threshold, which I think is 1,700 cubic meters per capita per year. As you can see, so now at present in 2020, it's now 1,300. So it's way low below the threshold, which is 1,700. So we can say that most of the parts in the Philippines experiencing water scarcity. And just to show you the 18 major river basins, just the 3 biggest major river basins in the Philippines. Number 1 be the Cagayan River Basin, which has more than 25,000 square kilometers, seconded by Mindanao River Basin, which has more than 23,000 square kilometers, and then the Agusa River Basin, which has more than 10,000 square kilometers. In the recent study, we identified 9 cities that's we call the water stress areas. And those cities are 3 in Luzon, 3 in Visayas, and 3 in Mindanao. In Metro Manila, just to name, in Metro Cebu, Bacolod City, Iloilo City, Davao City, Cagayan de Oro City, Zamboanga City. And then here in Luzon, Metro Manila, Baguio City, and Angeles City. Just to show you the current population with access to water supply for level 1, level 2, and level 3. For the country, we have 44% for level 3, 11% for level 2, and 50% for level 1. And the rest is for the by region, the Metro Manila, Caldera, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, and so on. I will not mention it one by one, no? Just overview of that. By the way, level 3, what you call this point source, house-to-house connections. Each house has a connection, has faucet in each house. Level 3 is a common communal faucet, and level 1 is common source, okay? Serving a couple of cluster of households. Just for the information, this is the water allocated. As I said a while ago, we are the one issuing the water permit before anyone can use the water. So this depends on the use. So as you can do in the pie chart, consider first the consumptive use. So the biggest will be the irrigation use. But of course, it should be like that, you know, around 74%, seconded by industrial 14%, then municipal 8%, and the rest livestock, recreation, fisheries, and others. And then if we consider non-consumptive or we include the power will be the biggest now. So it has 59.7% for power, 29% for irrigation, and then the industry, municipal, and so on. Just to show you, the 26% of the Philippines are considered water stress areas. It's covering 544 cities and municipalities. Just to show you the map. Let's go to the issues. What are the issues? Of course, I think we are very familiar with the water quality deterioration. Of course, caused by rapid urbanization or industrialization, indiscriminate land use and development. So you know that lack of agricultural land now converted to residential and industrial due to economic development. Then, of course, what we have to expect is the increasing volume of solid waste, pollutants, and hazardous waste. And then again, the increasing demand lead to the over-extraction of groundwater. Then, of course, the inadequate sewerage and sanitation facilities. This in the Philippines, it's a big problem now in the Philippines. The sewerage and sanitation facilities. Then the watershed degradation, and then deteriorating health of river and coastal systems. Also, we have the increasing incidence and intensity of water-related risks such as typhoons, floods, droughts, and landslide, which caused, of course, by climate change and other environmental factors caused by human intervention. And then increasing water demand together with insufficient water infrastructure. Ayan po. Actually, in the Philippines, the increasing demand on water, parang just it's not equate the growing facilities or infrastructure for water supply. Then, of course, the groundwater contamination, the leachate, subsurface discharges, surface water pollution. You very well know these issues, deforestation, of course, climate change. Everyone's the star of the the cause of drought and El Nino or El Nina. These threats on climate change. Then, of course, aside from that, on organizational side, we have numerous national government agencies or institutions working or related on water resources management. Lack of coherence in assigning water-related functions, the unclear linkages among water-related national government agencies, and the perceived overlapping and unclear mandates. Usually kasi most of the policies or laws, they're overlapping. Sometimes there are gaps. As I said, conflicting laws and policies, absence of updated and reliable data information. This is very important because, as you know, data should be not only in quantity but also in quality. Should be updated. Para when you talk about of course, the modeling side, we say that what comes in comes out, or the garbage in, garbage out. So it's very important. It should be updated, quality and quantity wise. So just to mention some of the LWRB projects and activities to address those aforesaid issues. We have the development of GMP, or the Groundwater Management Plan, wherein its main objective is to effectively and equitably manage groundwater resources by providing guidance, document for groundwater development and protection. Actually, what we did is we provide copies of this report to the concerned LGUs for them to use as a guide or reference, particularly in drafting or developing their CLUP or the comprehensive land use plan, so that they may know where the water occurred or where where there is a potential water for future development. And then, considering current situation as well as future water challenges, and this program covers groundwater constraint areas identified in the 1998 JICA Master Plan. Sa ngayon, to date, there are 11 groundwater management plans. Just to name them, Iloilo, Cagayan de Oro, Metro Manila, Angeles, Bacolod, Baguio City, Metro Manila, Tagbilaran, Zamboanga, Batangas, and Cavite. While GMP in Masbate, Laguna, and Bulacan is currently being undertaken. This is to address the over-extraction or the scarcity on water supply. And then just to show you the map, that's the place that I've mentioned. And then again, we have also the comprehensive water resources assessment of major river basins. This is to provide scientific basis for policy planning, programming, and project implementation relative to the management and development of the basin's water resources, taking into account the impact of climate change. So in this study, we already consider the effect or the impacts of climate change and also the increasing water demand. The study covers the country's 18 major river basins. To date, we have already finished 5 river basins assessment studies, namely the Agno River Basin, Panay, Halaur, Davao, and Bicol. There are coming additional 2 RBs expected to be completed this year. And this 2023, we have a proposal which covers the Abra River Basin. just to show the map of those river basins. And then, of course, again, as I said a while ago, we have to update our data. So how do we do that? So we have the establishment of groundwater monitoring wells in groundwater constrained areas. So in selected areas, we establish groundwater monitoring wells. So far, we have 60 groundwater monitoring wells and have been established, and 15 wells are expected to be completed this year. So after 2023, we have already 75 and still ongoing. So as much as possible, we want to gather updated and continuous groundwater data, particularly on groundwater level and groundwater quality. Then also, we have the ongoing installation of automatic sensors in established groundwater monitoring wells. Together with Ateneo de Manila, these projects they establish what we call it, the sensors, which can be downloaded remotely. So sites with automatic sensors are in Iloilo, Cagayan de Oro, Bukidnon, Metro Manila, and Angeles. And 22 monitoring wells were installed with water level and water quality sensor. So that's it. We are now going to more technology-wise, more high technology, adapting more latest technology to gather very important water-related information. Just to show you the map, this is what we got, the data. You can see the threshold of the red line, and then this the data we got, this that varies. Also, we have the just to gather the data on dams. We have a project called automated real-time monitoring for dams and reservoir. This project is for 3 watersheds, namely for Binga and Buklaw sa Roque dams, and then the Magat dams, and then the third, the Pantabagan dams. This is still ongoing, together with in collaboration with the DOST-PAGASA shared and Mapua. These are still ongoing. Then we have also the listahan tubig. This for the water utility regulation, the water supply operator regulation. For level 1, 2, and 3, we have what you call the listahan tubig database, wherein all water supply operators are directed to provide inputs on the database. Of course, we have also the water permit management information system. This is also for the application on water permit. Aside from the face-to-face, we have already adapted or already implemented this online water permit application system to cater our stakeholders or clients in Visayas and Mindanao and some remote areas here in Luzon.
Sir,
and of course, the IEC campaign, of course, just
sir,
to...
for a while, I'm sorry I have to
Yes,
cut
sir.
you, but I have to remind you that you only have 3 minutes. I'm sorry, sir, but we have another presentation
Including Q&A.
online. Yeah, 3 minutes, sir.
Okay,
Thank
anyway,
you.
it's almost finished now. Maybe 2-3 slides.
All right. Yes, sir.
I just make it fast. Okay. Okay, of course, the IC campaign, of course, it's very common for all agencies. And some of foreign, as you said, we have also the Integrated Water Resource Management Information System for Pampanga River Basin under COICA. These are GIS-based projects. And then we have the National Water Resource Development Management in the Republic of the Philippines, or the Data Collection Survey, together with JICA. These are JICA and NEDA. And then for everybody's information, NWRB acts as the focal agency of the Philippines in the ASEAN Working Group in Water Resource Management, or OGRAM. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Okay, with that, for the last message from NWRB, water management is a shared responsibility. So let's do our share. Let's protect let's protect and conserve our water resources. Thank you very much. That's all po.
Yeah, maraming salamat po, sir. Good morning po sa
Yeah.
inyo. Now, the floor is now open for questions. So I think we have some questions from the floor. We have 5 minutes, approximately 5 minutes for the question and answer. So who wants to
Yes.
throw the first ball? For Engineer Luis Rongavilla from the NWRB. Do you have any questions for sir? Okay, Sir Kiblat from Visayas PRSD.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just curious of the presentation on the groundwater levels. It is presented there that Cebu is represented with color red. Can you further explain that? What do you mean by that?
Actually, that color red.
Sir, because I am from Cebu,
This
sir.
one? Yeah. Actually, this data is from Cagayan de Oro City, no? But anyhow, those red, what we call is the threshold. Kumbaga, that's the base. On the beginning, that is the, it should be that, what you call this, we call the threshold. The, what you call, the water level on that area should be like the, on that level. It's almost co-equal with when you see the water seawater level or the ground the water level from the ground. Okay, this is the level wherein just to prevent the water intrusion, the salt water intrusion. So that's the threshold. Below that, if you go below that red line, then possibly there will be over extraction or there will be a saltwater intrusion, particularly if you are on the shoreline.
Alright,
Did I answer it clearly, sir?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir Al?
So it would mean, sir, that Cebu is in critical level?
Not all parts of Cebu, Cebu is very big. What do you mean Cebu, sir? Metro Cebu or...
But that red color represents critical level?
No, that's a threshold.
Okay. Thank you.
This one. What I mean is it's something like it's going along the line with the mean sea level. See? Just imagine, the mean sea level and this red line on same line. Then you go below that, then possible na magkaroon na we may have saltwater intrusion because you're below the threshold level. You get my point, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Rongavilla. We have one question, sir. Sir Luis, we have a question from our online participants. This is from Dr. Wendy Shuffles from BOM Australia. So she's asking, first she said, great presentation, and now she is asking, are you running impact modeling with CMIP data with your GW model? Sir, the question
Running
from...
what? Running model?
Yes. Are you running impact modeling with CMIP data with your GW
What do you
model?
mean CMIT? CMIT?
Groundwater. GW is groundwater from Dr. Wendy Shuffles. So the secretary is now flashing the question for you, sir.
Okay. When you talk about the groundwater management plan, we used to run the model. In that study, we ran the model for the groundwater. We create scenarios, like for example, based on the available data, the strata lag, that's the job of the consultant. But I'm just trying to explain what has been done on this study. They ran the model based on the available data, the strata lag, and the pumping test, something like that. And then they run the model, and then they make scenarios. Like, for example, case 1, this much will be withdrawn. Case 2, after 10 years, this much will be withdrawn. And after 20 years or 25 years, just to show what will be the impacts on the groundwater availability, because we, NWRV, as a regulating body for the water supply, water resources, we must know what will be the scenarios, or how much are the limit. If we are going to allocate in this area, let's say in the city, in the urban areas, if you're going to allocate this much water, what will happen? Or how much water can we still allocate based on the scenarios 1, 2, and 3 after running the model? Did I answer the question?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that answer.
Okay.
I think that makes sense to me, that you're running a scenario rather than running input modeling from climate models.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Engineer Luis Rongavilla from NWRB. For the questions from the floor, from Sir Al Kiblat of Visayas PRSD, and then we also have question from Dr. Shuffles for the Bureau of Meteorology, Australia. I think we're now moving on. We're now moving on to the next presentation. The next presentation is from Professor Patricia Jaranilla Sanchez, Professor 5 of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. The title of her presentation, can you flash, please? Can you flash her presentation? So the title of her presentation is Climate Change and Water Resources in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Patricia Ann Jaranilla Sanchez.
Hello, good day everyone. So on behalf of the UPLB Interdisciplinary Studies Center for Water, I am Patricia Sanchez and I'm presenting Climate Change and Water Resources in the Philippines. So this has already been mentioned by Engineer Rongavilla, but let me just go through this very quickly. So this is the breakdown of our water resources in the country. About 14% of that is in groundwater and 86% in surface water. I think Dr. Rongavilla's values are more updated than mine. I got this from their report. So anyway, but the freshwater storage capacity and the high rate of precipitation assure the country adequate supply for its agricultural, industrial, and domestic uses, but seasonal variations are considerable and geographic distribution is biased, often resulting in water shortages in highly populated areas, especially during the dry season. Here are some seasonal variations and geographic distribution for rainfall all over the country, for surface water, for groundwater, and for water availability per capita. And as you can see, it's not really uniformly distributed, which sometimes causes problem when we have varying water uses nationwide. And for the water resource potential, so this is just a breakdown of it. Metro Manila is one of the most highly populated cities in the Philippines, but as you can see here, it has actually the least water resource potential. The highest one, I think, is in Caraga. And water use in the country has several competing water users. So partly from agriculture, domestic use, industry, power generation, and recreation. We have both consumptive and non-consumptive uses of this, with around 130,500 million cubic meters per annum for power generation, the rest for recreational use on non-consumptive use. And then for consumptive use, majority of it is still really on irrigation, about 76%. 8% is in domestic, 14% for industrial use, and 2% for others. So this is just maybe Engineer Rongavilla has gone through this a bit, but I forgot my timer. So agriculture water can be optimized through improved irrigation, land preparation for water application, the use of technologies, the use of optimized irrigation scheduling, and so on. While for public supply and domestic use, usually public supply is concentrated in urban areas where rapid population growth actually is increases the domestic water use. Periodically, this is in short supply, and this can easily be reduced at relatively small cost. So some supply management for domestic water are really basic, and I think this is at the household level, we can do this already. Fixing the leaks, using efficient bathrooms, using efficient home technologies, and so on. Back in 2017, we had a collaboration with NWRB and other agencies, I think including PAGASA, wherein we planned for water road mapping activities. And one of our activities was to identify what the major problem in the Philippines is for water insecurity. And the one that is identified is actually the weak governance. So this is just a problem tree of water insecurity that actually stems from weak governance that result to increased water-related risk and eventually affecting our communities. So poverty, loss of livelihood, income, and welfare losses. Of course, despite this identified issue, we took a look at what possible legal frameworks are available. And I think for this country, for our country, we have quite a bit. So starting from the Water Code, I think this is of 1974, and other legal frameworks. So we have quite a plethora of all these legal frameworks, but I think there is some issues in implementing and in the overlaps. So this is one of the proposed functional charts available as based in the Philippine Water Supply Sector Roadmap of NEDA. So as cited in the, Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan for 2019 to 2030. And there are a lot of agencies. I think there are about 33 agencies working on water, and some of their mandates are overlapping. So we need to take a look at this. Anyway, so from our end in the IDSC water, so we have a few case studies related to agriculture that looked at some of our irrigation systems in terms of the demand and the supply. And on average, if you just roughly take a look at the figure on the left, so this figure here, Amris and the Maris, so this is in Angat and in Marending in Lanao del Norte. In general, you would see that there is a much lower available supply as compared to the demand. But as I said, this is very, very general because this is like overall average, annual average, I think. But if you take a look at the monthly supply, during the rainy season, there is actually a much, much higher supply when water is not needed. And during the dry season, there is higher demand, obviously, for irrigation and no available supply. So that is another issue that we have to look into and address. We took a look at several domestic water supply cases. So in Batanes, the supply and the demand are almost similar. Bacolod in Lanao, Legazpi has much higher demand, Angeles City, much higher demand, Ormoc City, lower demand, and El Nido, same supply and demand balance. So in the bigger cities, there is a much higher demand than what the city is able to supply. And this needs to be considered. Now, let's take a look at climate change projection. So for this study, we just took a look at rainfall. So utilizing CIMIP 5, RCP 4.5, and 8.5, and selecting top 5 models that are appropriate for the country based on their spatial distribution and errors. So we selected the best models that could represent past data in the country, and then utilizing PAGASA's RIDF information, adjusted RIDF, modeling, HEC HMS for this one. We generated a 24-hour synthetic storm hyetograph and some hydrographs, and then incorporated it in the RAS, so two models in succession, HEC HMS and HEC RAS, to identify flood inundation. And then we combined this with sea level rise. So 1, 2, 3 steps. For several cities in the country. So this is just the watershed scale 5-year return period and 100-year return periods for the extremes RCP 8.5, taking a look at one of the cities, Cagayan de Oro. As you can see, there's some observed drying projected in the models. This is for Ormoc. Again, 5-year and 100-year return period, RCP 8.5, showing some increases in future rainfall distributed all over the watersheds. And this is for Angeles. So in Angeles, so the one in yellow means drying. So 1 to 2 models of the 5 showed some drying and not much increase, actually 6 mm per day is not much, but some projected very small increase in Angeles, but more drying in wider areas. And then 3 out of 5 and 2 out of 5 models drying up for Legazpi, but some areas have much higher future rainfall. And then for Tagum, so this is for, so Aphrodite is the observed. And then for the different models, there are increases in future rainfall. And just to summarize, so this is the RCP 8.5 projections for the 4 cities, showing more, the higher the return period, the higher the percentage change. But as you can see, there's also an increased swath of possible values. And this is the beauty of multiple models, because you cannot just have one value to project climate change in the future, because after all, nobody knows what will happen in the future. So these models are scenarios or are options that could happen based on the physics implemented by the different agencies. And these are some of the results of the RAS. So this is for Cagayan de Oro, showing increased areas flooded. This is the inundation in Cagayan de Oro. In Ormoc, there's also more flooding and deeper flooding happening. 1.5 to 14 to 16. And then this is for sea level rise in Ormoc. So 1.1 meter maximum projection. For Angeles, so since it's more dry, there's not much flooding that's projected to happen, obviously. And it's also in a higher elevation area. In Legazpi, so more flooded areas. The problem with these cities is that they are developed along the coast. So that means a lot of the developments will be flooded. And the corresponding sea level rise in Legazpi. So this is for Tagum, river inundation, and sea level rise, maximum of 1.112, with different heights or different areas flooded in the different affected barangays. So how do we do our adaptation strategies? So our solution is to try to integrate our findings into the city plans. But the challenges are, for the different cities, they are actually addressing different issues and challenges. So sea level rise, saltwater intrusion, waste management, high rainfall intensity leading to flood, water supply, drought, poor zoning, and urban heat island. That means our recommendations would also vary. So on the rightmost are some of our recommendations. And since my title is on water resources, so looking at water supply and demand, so we have the following recommendations: installation of water treatment facility, expansion of irrigation coverage, and water quality monitoring. So if you take a look further at what's happening in terms of water and water supply and demand for each of the cities, and we also checked like what policies are available, national or local, and what are their current interventions, we are not really lacking of our interventions. However, so for this study, we added some more recommendations and identified the key actors and responsible agencies that could implement these recommendations we had. So for example, implementation of the WACMA, creation of the City Water Resources Board, regulation of extraction of groundwater, utilization of existing springs for potable water supply, and adoption of rainwater harvesting facility. Of course, the key actors are the LGU, the city government offices like the CENRO, the city planning, city engineer's office, city health office. And Angeles City also had several local and national policies and their current interventions, because in Angeles City, more drying is observed. So rainwater harvesting was our main recommendation. Ormoc City and Tagum City were also considered. I think installation of water treatment facilities were the recommendations because they had issues with water quality in that area. And Legazpi City, so that I think for this city, the recommendations were for tapping of other potential supplemental sources of water, rehabilitation of upgrading and irrigation systems, farm-scale water storage facilities or rainwater harvesting facility, and climate proofing of water distribution system. And so let's move on to mitigation strategies. So currently, our group is doing something very hypothetical. So unlike most of our mitigation strategies on the ground, this is still not ready for on-the-ground deployment, but this is a what-if scenario. So it's called SRM, or the Solar Radiation Management for Water Resources under climate change. So anyway, we have this study, I think in collaboration with Decimals, and we're considering the Philippines as one of the cases here in Southeast Asia. So basically, SRM is like what happened in Mount Pinatubo back in 1991, wherein the particles were spewed up to, I think, the stratosphere. But in this case, this is hypothetical. So it's a global data set that assumes that something like Mount Pinatubo would happen and would cover the stratosphere, therefore deflecting the heat or the radiation from the sun instead of bringing it into the earth, therefore ending up with some cooling. So I think back in 1991, after the Mount Pinatubo, some cooling was observed globally, and this led our scientists into thinking how we could replicate that, and what if we do that to cool the earth so that we prevent global warming. But SRM is not a solution. It's just part of the solutions or part of possible solutions. However, since this is not yet ready for deployment, as I mentioned, this is a study that is highly hypothetical and highly for our modeling only, because we want to know that what if there's no other choice, we have no other mitigation strategies that need to lower the temperature rapidly as soon as possible. This could be our last option, but it's a last option because we need to know what will happen to us if this is deployed in the stratosphere. So far, we are using the data set called GeoMIP. So it's part of the CMIP6 data sets. So we are using G6 Solar and G6 Sol4. And we are going to be integrating that into our flood models and crop models and looking at how this would affect. So essentially, we are still in the beginning phases. I just have 3 data sets and 3 slides left here. But this is for rainfall, showing some increases in the rainfall from the G6 Sol4 and G6 Solar. Here on the right, you can see the summary. SSP 2, 4.5, and 8.5 are the without geoengineering, without SRM happening. So there's a decrease in overall, no, there's still increases in GeoMIP, but so far from our calculations, more increases will happen if GeoMIP is deployed here, especially in the Philippines. And then this is for temperature. So cooling is expected, but as you can see here, there's still some increases.
Professor
Yes?
Sanchez, I have to cut you, but you only have 2 minutes left in your time.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. All right. I just have one more slide left. Yeah. So for temperature, a reduction in temperature is expected. So for example, SSP 8.5 is 2.1 maximum here. With geoengineering, it's only like 1.6 or 1.8. And solar radiation also, this is downward right? Shortwave radiation, there's also an expected decrease in solar radiation happening in different parts of the country. So that's it. That's all I have. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the overtime. If you want more details, you can contact me and my team in the UPLB Interdisciplinary Studies Center for Water. This is our email and our phone number. Thank you. Pasensya na
Alright.
po.
Thank you very much, Professor Patricia Haranilla Sanchez. Maraming salamat po. Now, I think we can entertain one to two questions dito for this presentation on climate change and water resources in the Philippines. I believe we already have one question from an online participant. Can you flash that? All right. So she's saying, who's this? This is Dr. Chapel as well. So impressive work on the return periods. So she's asking, did you choose a subset of CMIP-5 models, or did you run the whole ensemble? And how did you model the compound flooding with sea level rise, open and close parentheses? So that's the question from Dr. Chapels of BOM Australia.
Okay. So yeah, for the CMIP-5 models, we rank them. We are using the CMIP-5 collection from the DIAS of the University of Tokyo, and then we ranked the models that could represent historical data of rainfall and temperature and other parameters over the Philippines and over a wider area, and utilized just the top 5. The ensemble members, we utilized at least 1 or 2 for each that is available or completely available for the different parameters. In this study, we only utilized the rainfall, so it was easier because it was more complete. Rainfall and temperature is more available for the CMIP-5. So yeah, we utilized some ranking strategy to limit our models. Now for the compounding of flooding and sea level rise. So as I mentioned, for flooding, quantifying, we used HEC-HMS and HEC-RAS. And then separately, because we have sea level rise information, so we incorporated that and separately using elevation map and the results of HEC-RAS, we compounded it or added the the sea level rise data that we were able to collect. So yeah, at this time, sea level modeling was not done, but just statically added to the map.
All right, thank you, Professor Sanchez. So there's a response from Wendy Chapels here saying thanks for the thorough answer. Do you have any questions, at least for, yes, Dr. Villafuerte?
Hi, Professor Sanchez. Good morning.
Hi, Mars.
Yes, my name is
Morning.
Mar. I'm from PAGASA. I'm just curious about how were you able to resolve the course resolution of the GCMs? I believe you
Ah,
used the GCMs raw data themselves. Thanks.
yes. So we individually bias corrected um, per 0.25. So we're using Aphrodite. I think Pag-asa was part of the project for coming up with this data set. So we are using the 0.25 degree Aphrodite, and then every 0.25 we bias corrected using the three-step bias correction, also developed with the University of Tokyo for extremes, average, and no rain days. So yeah, every point for the entire watershed, it was bias corrected because, as we know, GCMs are like 2.5, 2.4 degrees resolution at best. So it's quite coarse, and we have no choice but to kind of statistically downscale it using this three-step bias correction method.
All right. Oh, thank you. I think that's a very interesting presentation from Professor Sanchez. Ma'am, can you please input your email in the chat box? I believe there are some few questions left from the floor. So, pwede po ninyong iwan yung inyong email address so you can respond and then they can send you an email. That's
Yes, po.
pjsanchez@up.edu.ph. Thank you very much, ma'am. Maraming salamat.
Salamat
A round of
po.
applause for Professor Sanchez, please. All right, now we have the next presentation. I believe she's already here. We have Dr. Wendy Shapples, Team Leader of the Hydrological Applications of the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. The title of her presentation is The Australian Water Outlook. Ma'am, you have 20 minutes for your presentation. You are given 15 minutes for your presentation and then 5 minutes for the question and answer. You may now proceed, Dr. Shapples.
Thank you, and thank you for the invite today. And it was really great listening to the previous presentations. It's so good to see what everyone's doing in other parts of the world. I'm going to talk about the Australian Water Outlook Service today, and I'm from the Bureau of Meteorology. I'm a senior research scientist in the hydrology science section of the Bureau, and I'd like to acknowledge my co-authors and also many, many more people who helped stand up this service. So I'll get going. So the reason or the impetus for standing up this service was that our previous offerings were fragmented. There were multiple services across multiple organisations. There was no funding for ongoing service provision. There was need for better water impacts modelling because the National Climate Service did not do that sufficiently, and the methods for assessing the impacts on water resources varied considerably, and we needed a national picture for better coordination between federal and states. So in order to develop the service, we had a user-centred design phase which went for 8 months, and we interviewed 56 potential customers from 20 organisations shown in the map below. And what we found was that people wanted information across multiple timescales, not just historical, not just short-term, but also seasonal and out to the future. So on that basis, we developed an outlook with 4 different products. The historical, which is like a reanalysis timescale, short-term forecast, a seasonal forecast, and an ensemble of future projections. When we did a similar thing, like Patricia was saying before, where we ranked GCMs on their ability to model Australia's climate drivers well. And then we bias corrected and downscaled to 5 kilometres. So all these products use the Bureau's hydro landscape models for gauged and ungauged catchments. So it's seamless, daily output at 5 kilometres. The high value outputs, as noted by our users, was soil moisture, evapotranspiration and runoff. And this enables decision making across multiple temporal scales, such as predicting water availability, short-term and long-term strategic planning, and also assessing climate and hazard risk. So all the products are available on the AWO website as shown here. However, the short term is still under development for release shortly. So in gathering the needs for historical products, our users said that they wanted quantification of the severity and extent of droughts, catchment conditions to support management of water resources, initialisation of flood forecasting models and water resources reporting. And the Historical Service meets those needs by providing data and instant assessment of historical to yesterday hydrological conditions across Australia to enable water resources analysis. And there's also some model improvements to go with that. And giving you an idea of the downstream application of the Historical Service product, we have with Sydney Water worked on a service that predicts asset failure, namely predicting the probability of pipe failures, where we input the AWO and things such as pipe characteristics into a regression model, and we train and test the probabilities of failures for pipes against maps of true failures. And this has reduced environmental impacts and costs for maintenance. And you can see the evaluation plot shown on the right there with the historical product. See if, no, yeah, there we go. And gathering the customer needs for short-term forecasts. The users said that they needed emergency response support, such as for bushfire risk. Australia's a pretty dry continent, as everyone knows, and bushfires are getting larger and larger due to climate change. Assessment of flooding risk for critical infrastructure such as road, railways and power lines, and forecasts of soil water availability and evapotranspiration for agriculture and irrigation. And so the short-term forecast service is going to meet those needs by situational awareness related to flood conditions, so we can indicate areas with likelihood of above runoff conditions, soil moisture forecasts for crop management decisions such as do we sow, do we harvest, evapotranspiration forecasts for guiding decisions on optimal water use and irrigation, because we also have the problem where we've got limited groundwater availability due to droughts and things like that. And to give you an idea of some applications of the short-term forecast, for the Australian Climate Service, they needed to know flood risk for forecast heavy rainfall conditions. So we're looking at a probabilistic flood inundation mapping service for depth and extent, where we've got multiple inputs such as a DM, river network, and also AWO. We use the Karma flood routing model and height above nearest drainage to get the inundation extent, and we get a probabilistic idea from running the ensemble, where you can see the water level ensemble plot above, and we get a probability of exceedance below. And you can see in this map that you've got two different floods. One was in January 2020, where we had very dry drought conditions, and one was when after having a triple La Nina event. So you can see that the inundation maps are quite different. Looking at the customer needs for seasonal forecasts, our users highlighted that they wanted commodity forecasting for the agricultural sector. They wanted to know timing of crop planting to changing growth seasons, because due to climate change, Australia's growth seasons are changing, they're not static. Estimating potential pasture availability, bushfire and flood risk for an outlook sense. So they don't want a few days ahead, they really need to know a season ahead where to deploy emergency services, and also managing pump hydro energy storage. And the seasonal forecast service is meeting those needs by providing data on drought risk several months ahead, soil moisture to indicate potential crop yield for growing season ahead, evapotranspiration to help estimate rain-fed crop water use, and also estimates of pasture growth, and that's supported by the seasonal hydrological forecasts. And to give you another example of a downstream service coming out of that, the soil moisture seasonal forecast is actually input into our Australia Fire Danger Rating System now. And there's an AFDRS index, which is shown on the right. So a chance above median is something to watch out for. And then emergency services can deploy resources there. To input and get this index, multiple inputs are required, including AWO. Again, there's a regression-like model to predict curing. And we train and test these forecasts against curing maps, and this will provide seasonal risk for extreme fire danger conditions, which we are probably coming into for the next season in Australia. And we collated some of the needs for future planning or projections, and these included water resource management, including water security, demand modelling for futures under climate change, planning for hydropower and electricity, environmental planning and water asset planning, disaster management planning, adaptation in agriculture, and transport and urban infrastructure planning. And the projection service is meeting those needs by providing scenarios of future water availability from runoff, soil moisture, evapotranspiration, and deep drainage. It's assessing risks of future drought and floods, intensity, duration, and frequency. And it provides application-ready data and guidance to run impact models. And these are in the form of a series of hydroclimate or cluster reports where Australia has 8 different hydroclimate regimes, and we've got a report for all of those areas and what is going to happen in the future in terms of uncertainty, a dry or wetter future, and hazard risk. So if anyone's interested, I can provide the link to those reports after this talk. But some of the downstream applications for our projection service is looking at future impacts on renewable energy. You may be surprised to learn that hydropower at the moment, anyway, is the largest source of renewable energy in Australia, and that the pumped hydro energy storage delivers system benefits because it offsets the variability of other renewable energy generation. And there will be future dependence for renewable energy generation in Australia, of which hydropower will support. And if you can see below in the graph, the projected stream flow changes throughout the century will impact hydropower generation. You can see that particularly in the southeast of Australia, there's a drying trend. And so we provide this service in an integrated format with one web interface and data service, and it includes the historical forecast and projections. It uses the common landscape model and also common verification data sets. And the reason why we've done so is because we want to do this in terms of branding, because customers like to have trust in one product and would like to use this across multiple timescales in the same place, in the same format. And forecasts and projections that can be related to historical data are good because then there's no biases from different models. It also addresses the discontinuity between short-term NWP forecasts and seasonal forecasts from a climate model perspective, and it bridges the gaps between seasonal forecasts and future projections. And so the future service is now going to look at a fully coupled Earth system modelling approach where we've got a climate model coupled to a land surface, coupled to an ocean model to accurately model the feedbacks inherent therein. And this will provide minutes to decades and meters to kilometres service, and that will give Australia a thorough and holistic climate and water outlook. And so that's what we're developing at the moment, and that's quite exciting at the Bureau. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for listening, and I'm just going to stop sharing.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Wendy Sharples, for that interesting question, and thank you for keeping your time. Now, do we have any questions for both online and for the participants here? Do you have any questions for Dr. Wendy Sharples? Anyone? Okay, Ms. Telma Cinco.
Thank you, ma'am, for a very great presentation. And you have from seasonal down to projection, so you have a complete set of applications as well. So here in the Philippines, we also have those. So we are interested in working with you with the works that you have, and hope we can collaborate to work towards working for the country as well. Application for both seasonal and projections. And you also have those flood risk assessment as well?
Yeah, so we'd be very interested in working with other countries. At the moment, we've got a little bit of a collaboration going with Tokyo University, in particular with the Karma flood aspect. But yeah, we'd be very interested in looking at applying common methodologies and indices across different climates, because obviously the Philippines is different to Australia. So I can put my email in the chat, and if you want to give me a shout, I'd love to chat further.
What is your hydrological model that you're using?
At the moment, we're using a landscape water balance model, but we are moving to a more land surface scheme called Jules. I don't know if you've heard of Jules, but it's what the UK Met Office use. So we'll be moving to that, and that's what we're developing at the moment.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Telma Singh, for that question. We have another question from the chat box. So I'm going to read it. So they are very interested. Dr. Sanchez is interested in fire modeling. Do you think the methods used by your agency, by BOM, can also be utilized in the Philippines? Is there a way we can access the methodology? That's a question for Dr. Sharples. Yes, go ahead, please.
Sure. So if you're interested in the Australian Fire Danger Warning System, that's definitely, we can definitely catch up offline, and I can maybe show how the index is calculated. I'm not sure if it will be, similar or appropriate for the Philippines, just because we have different vegetation and a little bit of a different landscape. But I'd be happy to share what we're doing, and hopefully maybe some of it might be applicable.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for those questions. Now we have one more. Thank you. Dr. Sharples, by the way, can you leave your email address in the chat box? So if there's some more question, they can send you a direct message. Can you do that, please?
Sure.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, now we have one more presentation under the first session, of course. We have Dr. Mohana Sundaram Shanmugam, Assistant Professor from the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand. The title of his presentation is on the Asian intelligence models for floods and drought forecasting in tropical and arid climatic regions. So, can Can you please share his presentation? Dr. Shanmugam, are you here?
Yes, yes.
All right, so can you please
can you
share
hear
your
me?
presentation? So you have 15 minutes for your presentation and then 5 minutes, give or take, at least for the question and answer.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you. So you can now use the slide mode. Yeah. Can you please put your presentation slideshow mode?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Myself, Mogana Sundaram. I'm assistant professor and program chair of water engineering and management in Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand. Yeah, today I'm going to give a talk on artificial intelligence models for floods and droughts forecasting in tropical and arid climatic regions. So first, I would like to give basic difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning. So what is artificial intelligence? Which is the technology using which we create intelligent systems that can simulate human intelligence. Whereas machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence itself, which enables machines to learn from past data and identify the patterns, without being specifically programmed. So this is the very basic difference between AI and machine learning. Okay, now coming to the applications, now each and every field is using AI. You might have heard AI applications in each and every field. So it started with computer science, robotics, and then expanded to engineering, medicine, economics, business, and other fields as well. And the specialty of this AI is, its ability to predict closer to the real-time data, or the field data, or in hydrology we say the observed data. So that is how it has gained a popularity in various fields in terms of its applications. And AI applications further extended to water resources field. In water resources field, we predict, we model the rainfall runoff process, evaporation, evapotranspiration process, stream flow, sediment, water quality, and water level changes. For all these applications, we started using this AI application. Okay, now the data-driven models can be just classified under two categories. One is machine learning models and deep learning models. The machine learning models, such as support vector machine, artificial neural networks, extreme learning machine. Similarly, deep learning models are AI models, convolution neural network, CNN, long short-term memory LSTM models, adaptive neuro fuzzy inference system ANFIS model, and WANFIS, which is also combined with wavelet decomposition. The basic difference between this machine learning models and deep learning models is also given here. So which is machine learning models is relatively or comparatively simpler than deep learning models, which learns the patterns from the past data and make the predictions. So that is how it works, all the machine learning models. Whereas deep learning models is relatively complex. It simulates human brain neural network that learn from large data with multiple neural network patterns. For example, the speech recognition and the face recognitions and the several applications are developed based on this AI models. I would like to just talk about a few AI models in terms of their structure, how it works for the water resources applications. Coming to the CNN, convolution neural network based AI model. So it has four structure. The first structure is the convolution layer, or we can say the first component of the CNN is convolution layer, where the filters or kernels are used to identify specific patterns from the input data or past observed data sets. If it is a time series data, then it applies a filter size of 1/2 and identify specific pattern from the time series models to use for the predictions. And second component is the pooling layer. The pooling layer is further down samples the convolution layer patterns. So it is further reducing the dimensions of the data and patterns recognized from the past data. And then it is fully connected layer. So after downsampling the data, it is fully connected. Input and outputs are connected with several neural networks. And then the back propagation algorithm is applied to minimize the loss function between the observed value and the simulated value. So that is how it predicts the output from the given set of inputs and past observations. Okay, so coming to this LSTM, long short-term memory based AI model. So the structure is given here. It is based on the cell state, which is connected with 3 gates. One is a forget gate, input gate, and output gate. Forget gate decides which information is to be forgotten and which information to be retained, whereas the input gate allows the information to pass through to the cell state. And output gate decides which information should be passed to the next cell state. And then, it is again connected with many hidden layers and neural networks, and input and outputs are connected to through neural networks, and then back propagation algorithm, optimization algorithm reduces the error between this observed and simulated values, and then it predicts the output solution. So now coming to the next AI model, which is VANFIS, which is combining the wavelet decomposition with the ANFIS model, where the input data is first denoised using the function shown here, and after denoising the data, which is used in the ANFIS model to predict the output. The ANFIS structure is also shown here. So these are the input layers, which is fussified and then normalized and defussified, and then it is finally predicted for the particular input-output process. Okay, so now let us look at the applications of this AI models on through some case studies. So in this study, we considered 2 river basins, one in Lower Darling River Basin in Australia, and another one transboundary river basin, Sekong River Basin in transboundary region of Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. The basin characteristics is given here, and also the climate characteristics and the data that we used in the the AI models for its applications to predict the floods and drought in this basin. The methodology that we adopt is just given here, where the raw data, rainfall and discharge data was pre-processed, and we derived antecedent precipitation index from rainfall data and standardized precipitation index and discharge data from different gauge stations. Then the three AI models, WANFS, CNN, LSTM, were used for drought forecasting as well as flood forecasting separately, for which we use the entire data set into training data set and testing data set. So 90% data goes for the training and 10% for the testing. We also use several evaluation criteria like R square, RMSE, and so on. And finally, we also analyzed the drought characteristics in terms of severity, duration, and flood characteristics in terms of peak flows, average flows, and 5 percentile and 95 percentile discharges. Okay, so the flood and drought are represented in the AI models based on these indices. Antecedent precipitation index, so that gives the relative wetness, precipitation wetness based on the past 7-day rainfall that we calculated using the equation shown here. And similarly, we also use the SPI index to represent the relative wetness and dryness in the selected basins. So the SPI was modeled based on the precipitation rainfall data. Then first, we fit the rainfall data with gamma distribution, and then the standardized normal distribution was derived. And based on this standardized normal values, we calculate relative wetness and relative dryness. If the SPI value is more than 2, it is extremely wet. And if it is less than -2, it is extremely dry. And we also used SPI 6 for representing medium-term drought conditions in the selected basin. This is the training and testing data for the 2 basins, Lower Darling River Basin and Sekong River Basins. The data we split it in terms of training and testing from the rainfall and discharge data sets. And the formats of input-output is also shown here. For drought, we use the SPI, standardized precipitation index layers. For flood, we use the river discharge, and API, which is calculated from the precipitation data. Coming to the results, the predicted SPI 6 values from 3 artificial intelligence models is compared with the observed values, which is shown here. And we found that the WANFS model predicts closer to the observations when compared to CNN and LSTM models. And this is 8, 9 stations in the basins we selected for testing these 3 models in terms of different evaluation indices, and we found that WANFS model consistently predicts better compared to CNN and LSTM models. And coming to the drought characteristics, we also calculated the drought severity, and we observed that WANFS is giving very closer predictions to the drought severity in the lower Darling River Basin when compared to CNN and LSTM-based model predictions. The flood applications, flood forecasting. So the discharge was predicted for the given period, and then we found that the CNN model performs better for a flood prediction when compared to LSTM and Van Face models. And LSTM and Van Face models often overestimates the peak flows during the period that we considered for the comparison. And there were 4 stage gauge stations we predicted using these models, and we found that the CNN model is performing better in most of the stations when compared to other 2 AI models. And then we also evaluated the flood characteristics in terms of 5 percentile, 95 percentile, peak discharge and mean discharge at 4 selected stations. And the comparison result shows that the CNN model gives a better solution when compared to LSTM and Van Face models. So now coming to the another basin, Sekong River Basin. First, the drought was forecasted in terms of SPEA6, and we found that the Van Face model was giving better solution compared to CNN and LSTM models. Then there were 5 stations. We further compared these 3 AI models prediction results with observations, and we found that the Van Face is giving the better results. So when it comes to drought, Van Face is consistently giving better results irrespective of the basins. But when it comes to floods, the CNN is giving relatively better results compared to other models. And again, the drought characteristics in terms of severity and duration.
Professor Shanmugam, I have to cut you,
Yes.
but I need to remind you that you only have 2 minutes left in your presentation.
Sure, I will wind up.
All right.
Thank you. So yeah, so coming to this drought characteristics, the Van Face model gives better results compared to CNN and LSTM. So the flood prediction is also given here. So as I said, the CNN model gives better flood prediction compared to other 2 AI models. So this is a comparison results among the 3 stations and 3 models, and CNN gives relatively better results. And this is the flood characteristics in terms of 5 percentile, 95 percentile, peak discharge and annual discharge in 3 stations among 3 AI models, and CNN gives the better results. So based on this, the conclusions from this study are drawn here. So Van Face is the best model for drought forecasting out of other AI models compared in this study, and CNN is the best model for flood forecasting compared to other models, and Van Face gives the best output when the input of vector consists of only one independent property, whereas CNN provides the best output when the input vector consists of more than one independent property. So with this, I stop here, and thank you very much for inviting me to this event. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shanmugam from the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand. All right, do you have any questions for Professor Shanmugam? Do we have any questions from the online? None. All right, so thank you very much. Questions? I think we can entertain one question because we're running out of time. So do we have questions from the floor? Yes, please, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning. My name is Oliver, and I'm under the weather division terms. Anyway, my question is, do you have any challenges in the using the AI? Do you have any challenges or what are the challenges?
Uh, yes, thank you very much for this question. And the challenges in using AI for this floods and drought forecasting is mainly in terms of the right structure identification. So we have to identify the right structure
Okay.
of AI model for
We're having a little bit of technical difficulty in hearing you, Professor Shanmugam. I'm sorry for cutting you. Can you repeat that question again, sir? Opo. Sige. Yung microphone po nasa,
Yeah.
the other one. Yes, the
Hello.
wireless
Yeah,
microphone.
okay.
All right, better.
So my question is, do you have any challenges using the AI technology or the application, or what are the challenges if you do have?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
So we can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. The main challenge is identifying the right structure of this AI models for the particular basin. So, so that is one challenge. And second thing is in terms of the computational capacity, and we need to have high capacity computers to model this process, especially if you are analyzing huge data and over at different spatial and temporal scales. Then we need to have sufficient capacity, high-end computers to process this AI models. So these are the two challenges we see as of now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Shanmugam. I believe there's a question online, but yeah, we can entertain one more question. This is the last question. All right, we have done a little bit of comparison between drought SPI and SRI and have found a lag in some regions in Australia. Do you think this could be a reason why the drought accuracy is worse than flood? This is a question from Wendy from BOM Australia.
Yes, thank you for that question. The drought, the drought characteristics in terms of SPI prediction was very good with the Van Fish model compared to other two models. But then we use SPI 6, which is representing medium drought. We are not going for long-term drought or short-term droughts. So still, we found satisfactory results from all three AI models. Maybe it can be improved based on further analysis on this drought characteristic in the basins. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. A round of applause. I'm sorry. Okay, one more question for Sir Roy Badilla.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I'm Roy Badilla from PAGASA. Just maybe first, I would like to thank for accepting my invitation to speak on this topic. Yeah, I just want to be cleared if you have some experiences on operationalizing this AI technology in the flood forecasting.
Yes, this work, one of our students have done, and still, we are developing this kind of models for, the other applications in water resources management. So we are in the phase where we are developing this kind of models, and also the IoT, Internet of Things applications in the soil moisture monitoring and water level monitoring and the other related water related applications we are doing in our program as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sir Roy. Thank you very much, Professor Shanmugam. So a round of applause, finally, for Professor
Thank you. Thank you
Shanmugam
very
of
much.
AIT Thailand. Now, this ends our first session. We already had a working break while the first four presenters were presenting their studies. Now, may I call on my colleague for the next part, for the next session, Dr. John A. Manalo, for the second session.
Thank you, Dr. Asho. So as we move on to the second part, apologies that we won't be having our break. So maybe we could do some kind of stretching, shoulder stretching, and move on. And as we move on, our part 2 will be early warning systems for water-related challenges. And to introduce our next speaker, she is from Hydrometeorology Division of the PAGASA DOST, and her presentation is Strengthening Flood Forecasting and Warning System in Agno River Basin. And now, let us call on Miss Eileen Abelardo. Maybe we can give a round of applause. Okay, currently they are doing some technicalities to switch their laptops because they are on site. And I hope that everyone enjoyed our snacks. Oh, apologies to those who joined online because we were the only ones who eat it. And while waiting, maybe we could go to comfort room for short break, and they are now currently also, if we have questions for the previous presenters, feel free to send us some email, and also we could directly contact our previous resource person. They have provided their email address in the chat box. Can our online participants, may I ask if the current view on your side is okay, or if you want us to zoom the presentation, because we will be showing the live where the presenter will be also in the video and also their presentation will be on the screen. Is it okay? Okay, now let's move on and let us call Miss Eileen Abelardo once again.
Thank you very much, Doc Jan. So good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm Eileen R. Abelardo from the Flood Forecasting and Warning section of the Hydrometeorology Division of PAGASA, and I'm here to share with you the results and discussions of my master's thesis entitled Improvement of Flood Forecasting for Strengthening Flood Resilience in the Agno River Basin. And this is the outline of my presentation, the background, objectives, methodology used in the study, results and discussion, including the conclusions and the recommendations. And let's move on to the background. So this is the study area It is the Agno River Basin, which is the fifth largest river basin in the Philippines with 5,952 square kilometers with a drainage area. And it is located at the western side of Luzon. And it is under the climate type 1, having a two pronounced season, dry season from November to April and wet for the rest of the years. And because of the differences on the elevation or the topography, wherein the upper part is mountainous from the Cordilleras and the relatively low or relatively flat area at the Pangasinan province. And the annual average rainfall varies from 2,500 to 3,800 millimeters of rainfall based from the climatological normals of 1991 to 2020 of the Gupan and Baguio synoptic stations respectively. So the images here shows the flooding in the Pangasinan province only. And the graph shows the affected number of population in the province of Pangasinan as well as the total damage of caused by the tropical cyclone from 2010 to 2020. And here, as you can see, in year 2015, during the passage of Typhoon Lando, more population affected in this province and high damage, including in the agriculture and infrastructures. And with that, the objective of this study is subdivided into three. First is to develop a river flood model for the flood forecasting. Second is to analyze the impact of climate change using the DIAS, having an archive of different GCMs from various institutions. Third is to increase the lead time by using PAGASA WRF for the forecast rainfall. And the main objective of this is to enhance the flood resilience through effective flood forecasting in the Agno River Basin using the developed or established hydrological model and the utilization of PAGASA WRF. So here is the methodology. First is the development of hydrological model, which is in this study, I used the RRI or the rainfall runoff model, which is a 2D model that can simulate the rainfall runoff and inundation simultaneously. And the input data are the topography, land cover, observed rainfall, including the dam discharge, because inside the river basin, there are three hydrological dams. And the simulated and the observed discharge at a certain station will be compared using the efficiency or the applicability of this model will be evaluated using the Nash-Sutcliffe efficiency. And after that, next is the climate change analysis using this system or the data integration analysis system developed by Japan. And first is to select the appropriate or suitable GCM that can represent the regional climatology of the study area. And we use the scoring. For the spatial or the relative distribution, we use the score or spatial correlation and the RMSE to evaluate the absolute error. And for the bias correction, we use statistical using the rainfall data sets of our synoptic stations. And we use the generalized Pareto distribution to fit in the, or to bias correct the extreme rainfall. And the data sets from the past climate in the 1981 to 2000 and the future climate for 2041 to 2060 will be as input for the established hydrological model. And then we compare the flood map of the past flood and the future flood using the extreme event in the area. And lastly is the numerical weather prediction assessment by using the PAGASA WRF. So I used both the domain, the domain 1 with 12-kilometer resolution and the domain 2 with 3-kilometer resolution. And a simple bias correction, if it if the wharf is underestimated or overestimated on the area. And then we get the simulated discharge or end inundation. So the result for the hydrological model, first is the calibration part. And we set some parameters, values for the parameters, in which we will evaluate this model using the NSE, and we got 0.82 NSE for this. So after this, after the calibration part, we use the established parameters to evaluate the model. So for the evaluation, I use 4 cases. Tropical Storm Mario in 2014, Typhoon Ineng in 2015, Typhoon Lawin in 2016, and Typhoon Ompong in 2018. And as you can see, model can actually or not 100% replicates the discharge at the San Roque Dam. Now for the climate change analysis, so here is the list of the 44 available GCMs inside the DIAS or the Data Integration Analysis System. And we evaluate each model using the selected or the key meteorological elements, namely the precipitation, air temperature, outgoing long wave radiation, sea level pressure, zonal and meridional wind, and the sea surface temperature. And using the scoring, GCM with a highest grand total will be selected. So in this case, there are 6 GCMs with a grand total of 6 to 8. But this is model doesn't have a future data, so we excluded this in our analysis. And this image shows the rainfall distribution comparing with our reference data comes from the GPCP of NOAA, project of NOAA. And then the other images are the rainfall distribution from the 5 selected GCMs. And as you can see, even though they are selected as a suitable model for our target area, which is the Agno River Basin, we can see some uncertainty with the rainfall distribution. Now, this graph at the top shows the extreme rainfall of the station and the selected GCMs. And as you can see here, the GCMs are underestimating the extreme rainfall for both stations. So we conduct or apply the bias correction using the GPD, and the fit is now okay. And then we check the future extreme rainfall for the both station, and the black line is for the stations, and the colored lines are for the GCMs. And here we can see that extreme rainfall will increase in the future for both stations according to these 5 selected GCMs. And then with this, for the further assessment, we check the distribution or the monthly distribution of the past extreme events for both stations, and we select only BCC CSM 1.1 model that can actually replicate the occurrences of the extreme rainfall that coincides also with the wet seasons for both stations. So as you can see here, for the Dagupan stations, the extreme or past extreme events occurred in April to November, while for the Baguio stations is from June to October. Now, this is the generated flood map using the established hydrological model, which is the RRI. And this 5 at the top is the top 5 with the highest extreme rainfall in our past rainfall data sets, and the top 5 extreme events for the future. So we select only the top 5 having an extreme rainfall. So on this image, we can see the difference on the flood depth. So in this image, so maybe the maximum flood depth for this is from maximum of 6, but for this is greater than 6.5. So I will show you the graph for this map later. So this area is actually the Poponto Swamp, which is located near the confluence of the major Agno River and one of the major tributaries of Agno River Basin, which is the Tarlac River. And also, this area is the Pangasinan Plain that always experiences flooding during wet season. Now, this is the graph. So, the maximum inundated area will be increased by 151 square kilometers in the future according to the selected GCM. And the flood depth is divided into three. First is the shallow flood depth from 0.1 to 1 meter depth with a little to almost no changes based on the top one of past and future extreme event. And next is the deep flood depth will be increased. Here, the area or the inundated area will be increased, especially for the flood depth of 4 to 5 meters. And lastly is the maximum flood depth will be increased by 1 meter. In the past, for example, here, on the simulator or the generated flood map, we can, the highest or the deepest flood is from 5 to 6 meters, while in the future will be have 6 to 7 meters. Now, this is the detail or information of the Pag-asa WRF that I use. So this is the correlation of the observed rainfall versus WRF rainfall forecast. So this blue is for the domain 1, the green is for the domain 2. And as you can see here, WRF rainfall forecast for our basin or for the Agno River Basin is underestimated, while a little bit overestimated using the domain 2. So this animation shows the simulated discharge after applying a bias correction using linear correlation equation. So after applying, we can see the performance of the model using the both domain of Pag-asa WRF. And we evaluate it using the NSE value. And the first case was, the first case used is the tropical cyclone Umpong in 2018. So this line shows the NSE value for both domain, and this red broken line is the peak discharge at this station. So with this, the domain 1, the blue line, with the 12-kilometer resolution provides 114 hours lead time in this case, and the domain 2 provides the maximum of 48 hours lead time before the peak discharge. Now, after that, we add some cases, 4 cases during the tropical cyclone Jenny in 2019, tropical cyclone Jos in 2018, and southwest monsoon in August and September 2019. And the line shows on the graph are the NSE value for each simulation using each initialization of Pag-asa WRF. And in this, domain 2 successfully simulate the discharge with maximum lead time of 48 hours for the 3 cases, namely the tropical cyclone Jenny, Josie, and the southwest monsoon in September 2019. But however, it has a poor performance on the southwest monsoon in August 2019 in this case. And the domain 1 doesn't have a consistent good performance in any of the other 4 cases. So this animation shows the simulated discharge compared with the observed discharge at this station for the 4 additional cases. So what is the benefits of this study in terms of flood management? So first, for the flood disaster prevention, since we already know which area in our river basin will eventually experience flooding in the future, we can check if our evacuation centers in the area is already okay. So if not, we can add additional evacuation centers. And for the flood disaster mitigation, we can have a coordination with the dam offices inside the river basin for the effective use of the dams. And lastly is for the disaster preparedness, for the preemptive evacuation, especially for most vulnerable groups, securing foods or needs during the flooding, and the deployment of the rescue and volunteer groups, because we can, after this, we can provide enough or longer lead time for the preparation. And for the conclusion and recommendation, first, the RRI model is a useful tool in flood forecasting in the Agno River Basin based on the result of this study, and more population will be affected since there will be an increase of 1,000 or more than 100 square kilometers of the maximum flooded or inundated area using the datasets of the BCC CSM 1.1 model, considering the RCP 8.5 scenario in this study. And lastly, in the Agno River Basin, rainfall forecast from WRF will be beneficial in flood forecasting during tropical cyclone and not much on the southwest monsoon. And for the recommendation, we have to update the values of the set parameters using a higher resolution of DEM, and the discharge point may be near at the outlet of the river basin. Second is to examine the other models, not only the BCC, but also the other selected GCMs. And the uncertainties will add confidence to the result of this study, and try to consider also different other type of downscaling. And lastly is for the further investigation on the domain 1, which is the 12-kilometer, should consider by applying different bias correction, not just a simple linear correlation for both TC and a southwest monsoon event. And these are some of the references I used for this study, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Eileen, for your very comprehensive presentation. And now we would like to open our session for question and answer. Do we have, maybe we could accommodate 1 to 2 questions? Yes, Nancy.
Thank you for your presentation. It was informative. Now, my question is, do you have any plan of replicating your studies with the other river basin, especially those under the BRSD? Of course, in collaboration with the PRSD.
Thank you, Ma'am Nancy. Of course, yes, that also is one of the plan. But first, we have to establish this on our study area, which is the Agno River Basin. And then after that, we can replicate it to the other river basin as well. One is also because of the availability of the data needed to establish the hydrological model. No.
Okay, another question. Yes, Sir Max.
You have done the simulation of the RRI using the observed rainfall and observed water level, right? So you were able to update, or rather you were able to reach the optimal parameters. Have you done this one? The optimal parameters will be used for the another set of data for forecasting or for future analysis. Another set of data, for example. Have you done that kind of study?
Sir, can you repeat?
I will repeat. You have done, sorry. You have done this study is by simulating the observed rainfall and then applying the RRI and then simulate it with the observed discharge. So you are able to reach the optimal parameters of RRI. Have you done another study wherein the observed, or rather the optimal parameters derived from the previous study will be used to another set of data, another event, I should say?
Yeah, I think it was the optimal parameters or value of parameters was used in the validation part. Validation.
Yeah, I should say validation.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. The calibration using the one flood event in 2015. And then the same parameters, the same set of parameters was used also for the validation in different for flood cases.
Okay.
Okay, I think we have a question from online. And this is from DocPad. How long does it take to process warp outputs into RRI? Maybe approximately.
For the simulation using the PAGASA WRF, in this case, it took 30 minutes, maximum of 1 hour. Because the DM that I use is actually 300 meters.
I see. So that's quite...
Also because of the computer that we used in the area.
Yeah. So the computational factor was also included. We have another question from, maybe this is the last question, and comments from Dr. Sharples. And maybe I'll just read it. Thanks for your really interesting presentation. I was interested in your bias correction. So have you looked into other bias correction methods or other methodology?
In this case, I just used the DIAS, or the Data Integration Analysis System developed by Japan, and including in this system is, or inside in this system is the bias correction, and then the bias correction that they used is the GPD, so only GPD was used.
Okay, thank you. And now, let us all give her a warm of applause. Thank you, Miss Eileen. And now let's move on to our next presenter. He is actually my supervisor, and he is currently the section chief of Impact Assessment and Application Section from Climatology and Agro-Meteorology Division. His presentation is called SATREX, or Satellite-Based Monitoring of Rainfall Extremes in Near Real Time. Okay, maybe call on Dr. Marcelino Villafuerte.
Thank you very much, Doc Jan. And good morning, everyone. And happy National and World Meteorological Day. Okay, so again, my name is Mar, and today I will be presenting on behalf of my team. No? Marami silang involved dito. Particularly si Mike Petaka, Mr. Wilmer Agustin, and Charlie Ray Pasqua. I think Charlie is here. They are involved in developing this SATREX. No? We call this Satellite-Based Rainfall Extremes Monitor. Okay. Oops. Ayaw mag-next. Pwedeng pa-next na lang. Ayun. Okay, so perhaps you are, or I think the first thing that I'm going to show you are those recent events, no, ng flood. Particularly in this case, I think this was just October 27 last year, and about 144 families in Negros were displaced. And aside from that, perhaps this is also familiar with you. After October 27, then October 30, this is, I think, due to Paeng. No? Paeng passed nearby Metro Manila as well. So we also experienced flooding around that date, no? October 29. You can probably see this. And perhaps some of you who were living in Cavite area, they also experienced such kind of flood over there. And then, perhaps about what happened also in Puerto Princesa, no, or particularly in Brooks Point in Palawan, this one. This is, I think, Christmas Day when they experienced this. So the news was about brought December 27. And then, aside from that, no, I think this is the picture on the right is an event as well in Mindanao. No, that was also uh, experienced sometime in Christmas Day. Okay. And because of those events, no, perhaps we are not going to wonder why in the World Risk Report in 2022, our country is ranked first, no, in terms of disaster risks. So basically, the computation of the risk index wherein we became the first one, no, in terms of that risk, include of course earthquakes, tsunamis, but cyclones are there. So Paeng actually is among the factor, and coastal flooding, no, even riverine flooding, and other factors are particularly included in that particular risk index. Aside from that, the vulnerability index, the vulnerability is also integrated in that World Risk Index, no? So it's actually a product of exposure, which are identified on the top panel, and then the vulnerability include susceptibility and so on, no? About three other factors there. So it's actually a square root of exposure times the vulnerability. That's how the World Risk Index was computed. Okay, and on the same report, no, World Risk Report 2022, the authors also included, no, or identified the role of the early warning system, no, particularly the utilization of satellite data in early warning system. And perhaps if we are going to fully utilize such kind of information, then perhaps the disaster management will be improved. And given that, with that in mind, no, and I'm not sure if some of you or most of you are familiar, JAXA, or the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, have actually launched recently their Global Rainfall Watch. So I think they started this a year ago, but perhaps not all of us are already familiar with this. So they actually provide near real-time information of precipitation, no? For example, this one was taken, I think, I took this yesterday. It's a screenshot. Okay, but perhaps there are still missing, no? Although this website, this Global Rainfall Watch, can give us information on the amount of rainfall anywhere, no, as covered by the domain, no, being captured by the satellite. Perhaps there is still something that is missing, and that's what we wanted to address. So, with that, we developed the SATREX, or the Satellite Rainfall Extremes Monitor, wherein, just like the JAXA, the Global Rainfall Watch, we can also look at how much rainfall was recorded over a certain area. For example, in this case, there's on October 28, 2022, there was about 236.99 millimeters of rain around this area in Panay Island. So perhaps, and then if we are going to look at further longer time scales, say for instance, previous 2 days, previous 3 days, and then previous 5 days, then of course the amount of rainfall would become higher. But again, the question is, what does this 236.99 millimeter of rainfall mean to me? Di ba? Siguro yun yung ibang questions natin in our mind. And therefore, we translated that by comparing it in historical values of rainfall. For instance, that amount of rainfall, about 236.99 millimeter, that occurred on October 28, 2022 over this area in Panay Island, means something, no? Because when we ask the question, how extreme such kind of event, and then we say here that over that area, it actually exceeded 15 or 20-year return period. And that means something, no? For example, these areas colored with orange means that minimal flooding is possible in low-lying areas because the rainfall at that time, October 28, 2022, exceeded the 5-year return period. Now, in this case, for areas with red or violet shadings indicate significant or even extreme kind of event, and perhaps that could lead to significant flooding. Okay, and confirming that was on October 28, 2022, rainfall recorded there, and this was actually what happened. So it was published October 29, and then according to the news, thousands of residents were displaced and evacuated to safer ground as tropical storm Paeng. So again, related to Paeng ito, no? In Antique with floods and landslides. Imagine, no? So if we looked at, ayaw mag-previous slide. Pa-previous. Ayun. Oops. Okay. Asa na tayo? So again, yun yung nangyari, no? Yung ganong amount ng rainfall actually caused that kind of flooding dun sa area. Ayan, ayan. Okay, so next, October 29 naman. No, look at October 29. That's just one day after that previous event that I showed. So on October 29, 2022, there was also a recorded amount of rainfall of about 234.35 millimeters. That is near Metro Manila. And that actually leads to this kind of information, no? According to our data, that seems that such event have already exceeded 15 or 20-year return level. And that means widespread flooding is imminent in low-lying areas. And that's true, no? This was, that actually coincided to this event, and also even in Cavite. And perhaps even more news you can probably Google more news pertaining to such kind of event. Okay, and aside from that, SATREX can actually allow us to zoom in certain locations. For instance, this is the December 26, 2022 event, wherein we zoom in kasi parang maliit lang yung area na merong shading ng orange and red. So we try to zoom in because it's an interactive map, and we found that here's the Brooks Point, I think, in Palawan, and that actually corresponds to this event, this picture shown by Inquirer.net. Okay. So, here's how it actually looks like, no, if we are going to visit the website of PAGASA, where the SATREX is located. So it's actually a multi-panel map where we can see 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 6 hours accumulation of rainfall. And from on the bottom of that map, those maps are actually the corresponding color-coded shadings. No, wherein, for example, if there's a certain amount of rainfall somewhere here, and then that coincided to an amount that exceeded the 20-year return level, then that could probably inform our disaster risk reduction management officers that something could probably something worse could probably be happened, and therefore we need to prepare. Okay, so aside from those multi-days, we also have these multi-hours of information pertaining to the rainfall events. Okay, and this specific event actually, December 24, around 3:30 to 4:30 p.m., there's this kind of violet colors here, indicating an exceedance on the 20-year return level of rainfall, and that actually caused this kind of flooding over the area. Okay, so allow me to introduce the SATREX. So this is now already available on the PAGASA's official website. You can, oops. You can see here. And it provides information on near real-time satellite rainfall estimates, no, observed in the previous 1, 2, 3, and 6 hours, as well as the previous 1, 2, 3, and 5-day rainfall accumulations. And they are translated into rainfall estimates relative to historical values and indicates areas possible to experience flooding. So it actually looks like this on the PAGASA's official website. Okay. And perhaps such kind of information could probably help us in different decision making. For instance, if we are going to look at the January 11 event, no, our president, Marcos, was not able to visit the target area, wherein he wanted to visit Oroquieta, but unfortunately, because of a continuous rainfall event around January 11 and even previous days, no, if you are going to look at these maps here, we can see a continuous rainfall sometime even as early as January 10, January 9, January 8. And there are some indications of extreme events on the lower bottom or on the bottom part of the maps. And perhaps if that kind of information was provided to our president, and perhaps that's a good information, perhaps that he could be thankful. Okay, so I need to finish my talk on that particular slide to allow discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc Mar, for the very informative presentation. That is really helpful. And now let's move on to the question and answer portion. Do we have any questions online or on-site? So who among us have already tried this website? Okay, Doc Vic have a question?
May findings ka ba tungkol sa bakit ganyan? Findings, kung bakit nagkaganyan.
Okay, our assessments, sir, are very rough because we just recently launched this. And I think the earlier figures that I have shown are some of those. But the formal investigation on the performance of the satellite rainfall estimates is still going to be done. We would like to look at perhaps at least 5 years of data to see how these rainfall estimates are, or how accurate these rainfall estimates are, and how useful this kind of information to us and even to the general public.
Thank you. Kasi ganito yung mga tinitingnan natin eh. Nagkaroon ng baha, ina-attribute natin dahil malakas ang ulan. Ito yung period, yung return period ng ulan na yon. Pero hindi natin tinitingnan kung ano yung development do sa lugar. Di ba? Halimbawa, nagpagawa ka ng kalsada, meron bang drainage system na kasama? Halimbawa, in-expand mo yung kalsada, kasama ba yung drainage system na ginawa? Siguro, we can dig deeper on how, on what happened doon sa area, ano yung mga development. Kamo sa Mindanao, ang dami na ngayong dati forested area, ngayon plantation na. So hindi lang natin siguro i-attribute dahil sa climate change, madaling sagot, di ba?
Well, thank you very much po, sir, for pointing that out. The main reason why we actually developed this kind of system is for us to have at least a quick guidance pertaining to whether something is happening somewhere else. And of course, if we are going to incorporate everything, it will take us longer time as well. As shown earlier by our earlier speaker, the model simulations pertaining to hydrological processes. Of course, it's really complicated. There are a lot of factors that we need to integrate. And if we are going to do that, everything, in just a short period of time that we need, then perhaps we need a lot of resources to do that.
Siguro yung study natin, hindi lang 1 year, kundi multi-year study. Para integrated na lahat kung bakit ito. Kasi meron ka ng, ano yung from satellite data, makikita. Hindi lang para sa iyo, para sa atin lahat. Kasi ganito ngayon nakikita ko eh. Lahat, yung mga nakikita kong findings because of climate change, because of mas malakas ng ulan ngayon, kumpara noon, may mga studies din naman siguro na yung increase ng rainfall is about 20% lang siguro. Nung normal rainfall noon, kung tumaas man. So, hindi lang dapat natin ina-attribute. Kasi parang humihinto na tayo. Kung minsan nga, sa tingin ko, ginagamit lang tayo ng mga, kung sino yung gumagamit dyan para magkaroon ng pondo. Climate change, nandun na kaagad.
Thank you, sir, for pointing that out. Actually, we are not attributing this to climate change. We developed the system in order for us to have a near real-time monitoring of extreme climate or weather events, particularly rainfall.
Mar, hindi ko tinuturo sa iyo, sa lahat sa atin, mga nakikita ko. Hindi lang sa iyo, hindi sa iyo, hindi sa iyo.
Okay, we are very thankful for that very important factor that we should consider for further analysis of SATREX. But of course, we have some kind of limitations for this platform currently. I think we can accommodate one more question from Doc Bonnie, and then we will mention some comments from the Zoom. And okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Ano, malaki ang potential nito para gamitin natin as a support.
May we request?
High potential for being used for our regular monitoring of extreme rainfall events, like yung what the rainfall warning system is doing for us, monitoring and providing forecast and warning for extreme rainfall events. Because as we all know, the rainfall warning system is totally dependent on the existing Doppler weather radars. And we all know also that when these radars are hit by strong winds, they are not anymore functional, and it takes us a longer time, days, or sometimes months, before these are restored to operational purposes. So I think this is a challenge for the group of UMAR to have cross-check with your SATREX, check it with the radars, so we can have more what we call this good dependence on the use of the SATREX for as a backup instrument for our rainfall warning system. Mar.
Thank you very much po, Doc Bonnie. Yes, SATREX was actually aimed to supplement whatever we already have, because, yeah, as you have said, in the absence of other instruments, then perhaps we have an alternative that we can use in order for us to inform the general public in terms of particularly for extreme events. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Apologies, but in the interest of time, we have to cut the session. And also, we have some commendations and comments from our online participants. And according to Dr. Schappels, those maps looks great. And also, there's like a question. I was looking for a website and wondering if we can move on to the past events. We can move it. Like, there's an option, a button where we can go for previous hours and days. And then maybe we could also try it first. Then we can also, please feel free to contact us and if you have further questions. But as we move on, Doc Nats, maybe one quick question. Okay, Doc Nats, may...
congratulations to Kumar and his team for coming up these techniques. I just want to ask if the same methodologies or techniques can be applied to, instead of using satellite data, using radar data, just to capture the localized event affected by local weather systems, which the satellite data cannot detect.
Thank you very much po, Sir Nats. Yes, it is true po. Actually, it was applied for every pixel. So what we did for the satellite data is we downloaded the historical data from 2001 until 2021. So we have at least 21 years worth of data, hourly and daily. So from the hourly, we will come up with the multi-hourly accumulation. So from the hourly, we derived 2 hourly, 3 hourly, and then 6 hourly. And then from that, we obtained the annual maxima series for every pixel. So I think that is also applicable to radar data. If we have the hourly or even every 30 minutes data, whatever temporal resolution it has, as long as we have the historical data for the radar.
Apologies, kindly mute po yung ating... Okay na po.
So we can actually do that, the same thing, as long as our radar data is available. And I believe it's available from our radar team here in PAGASA. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much po. Ayun po, integration with radar data. And again, I just want to mention we will have press conference in relation to SATREX later on. So if we still have further concerns and questions. And now let's move on to our main agenda and proceed with the ceremony. May we call on our Sir Dondi.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. John, and of course to our speakers for the 2 sessions. For the first one, that's moderated by Dr. Joseph Vasconcillo with our presenters, Engineer Rongavilla of NWRB, Dr. Pat Sanchez of UP Los Baños, Dr. Wendy Sharples of Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, and of course, Dr. Shanmugam of the AIT Thailand. Also on the second session, we had Miss Eileen Abelardo of DOST-PAGASA, and of course, just concluded with Dr. Mar Villaferte, also from PAGASA. All right, and time now is 12 o'clock, time check. And for our convenience, it's already lunchtime, so we may now go directly to our closing ceremony, and may I respectfully invite 2 of our key officials of the DOST-PAGASA to proceed in front for the awarding of certificates of appreciation. May I call on Ms. Shirley David and Ms. Telma Cinco, our Chief of the Research, Development and Training Division and Climate and Agrometeorology Division, respectively. So, may I read the citation? So, Republic of the Philippines, Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration awards this certificate of appreciation to our resource speakers. Joining us online is first, for the first session, we had Engineer Rongavilla of NWRB, Professor Pat Sanchez of UP Los Baños, Dr. Wendy Sharples of BOM, Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, and Dr. Shanmugam of the Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand. So, yeah, the 4 resource speakers we had online, yeah, they're also given the certificate of appreciation here. Appreciation and grateful recognition of their invaluable and unselfish support by sharing their expertise as resource speakers. Sorry. So, in sincere appreciation and grateful recognition of their invaluable and unselfish support by sharing their expertise as resource speakers during the scientific forum in connection with the celebration of the 158th National and 73rd World Meteorological Day with the theme, The Future of Weather, Climate, and Water Across Generations, given this 23rd of March, 2023, at the PAGASA Central Office here in Quezon City, Philippines. So signed by our Administrator, Dr. Vic Malano, PhD. Okay. So for our resource speakers joining us live and face-to-face here at the PAGASA Science Garden, here in AMIHAN Conference Room, may we call on Miss Eileen Abelardo of the HMD. Yan. Thank you so much, ma'am. Photo ops. Okay. All right. And last but not least, of course, is Dr. Marcelino Villafuerte II of the CAD, also from DOST-PAGASA. All right, thank you so much. And that concludes our sessions for this morning. And to formally close our scientific forum, may we call on our Deputy Administrator for Research and Development. A big round of applause for Dr. Esperanza O. Kayanan.
Thank you very much, Don D. Bernard. So, first and foremost, we would like to thank all our resource speakers this morning, especially our invited guests, the resource persons from different agencies, not only in the Philippines, but also from other countries like Dr. Sharples from Australia and Dr. Shanmugam from Thailand, and also Dr. Rongavilla from NWRB and Professor Sanchez from UP Los Baños. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise and your precious time with us this morning for the celebration of our National and World Meteorological Day. And also to our experts from PAGASA, thank you very much, Doc Mar and Miss Eileen Abelardo. This is indeed a very educational and learning activity. You have shared all your expertise, your research activities, your research work. So we hope that everybody who joined us today have learned many things out of this technical session. And we also would like to congratulate the team who are responsible for the successful conduct of this activity this morning. And also we are in the PAGASA executive staff headed by our administrator who stayed with us all morning. Thank you very much, Doc Vic, Doc Nads, and Doc Bonnie. We hope that this event this morning we will go with something that we have take away. So also thank you to our participants who are here present face to face and those who joined us online. We are still inviting everyone for our celebration this afternoon and this evening. So we hope that everybody will now have a good idea on how this water that we have before and the future of this water across generations. So muli, thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Dr. S. Picayanan, our Deputy Administrator for Research and Development of DOST-PAGASA. And that formally concludes our scientific forum, The Future of Weather, Climate, and Water Across Generations. Thank you so much for joining us. In behalf of the CAD and RDTD, our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to all who attended us with us online and physically here at Pagasa Science Garden in AMIHAN Conference Room. So, all right, thank you so much, and happy World Meteorological Day. We will be continuing our celebrations all throughout the day, and we hope to see you around. Thank you so much.